All right, good morning and welcome everyone to another live stream where we're going to be covering the fantastic program that we call World Creator. But this time, we are pleased to have finally the much anticipated beta version. And today I'm joined with Stefan. Hi, Stefan.
Hi.
Hope you're doing well. So I hope everyone else is doing well and excited for this new version. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are on the planet. Which seems like it is a slight pun that we're in World Creator and we live on a planet. I don't know. But first off, I would like to say that some people have asked about the tutorials or if there is new tutorials coming for this specific version, and they are. I am still working on those, especially since we've had some updates then. And we are going to have those live as early as January 3rd, just past the new year. So hopefully you guys can keep an eye out for that. It's going to be more very beginner oriented, especially for those who haven't used World Creator before. And sometime in February, we'll be releasing a whole pool of more advanced, very specific videos covering the many different topics throughout the program. So first off, I'd like to gauge a little bit with the chat on who's new to, or has, I guess, new to the program. Have anybody had access to the alpha before and beta and have a chance to tweak with it? Or is anybody coming fresh out of school and seeing this sort of stuff for the very first time? That way we can kind of get an idea of, the skill level of everyone so far. Because a lot has changed, at least that I've noticed with the program on alpha. And Stefan, you and the guys have, I know, put some painstaking effort into getting this for us today.
Yes, was hard work.
Much needed break for the next push, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Real quick, can everybody hear us okay before we jump into things and show you guys a few of the new and sweet things? Fresh, just bought version 2. I used the original a bit, but I've been waiting for the beta to really dive into it. Good. Used alpha many times, but didn't use it for a while now. Gotcha. A little bit, all right. If you're okay, so real quick with the support stuff before we go too far, if you're having any issues with logging in or accessing the beta or issues with installation, I would definitely post those in the support thread in the World Creator Discord server. If you, as far as getting access to, I'll just show this real quick. So here is the original website, and we're going to cover some updates later on with website and pricing and stuff. But in the original website, to get, if you've have a active maintenance subscription, I believe, and if you've, I think that you said that if you've purchased World Creator 2 since May of 2020, is that correct? You may have access, Stefan.
Yes. Let me see.
Well, regardless, to know that if you've got access, you just go and sign in up here to the top right of the website. That'll be the website portal. And you'll see something like this once you sign on. If you have access to the beta or any alphas, you'll see it here in the right column. Now, some of this will be changed because they're working on updates, as I said, but to get access, just make sure that you check that out. If your license has expired, then we'll talk about some of those things later on. Have you read? Yes. If you've got World Creator, the beta, be sure to read the README file first, just to see what you have to do. Waiting to jump into this with my 3090. Well, I think World Creator, at least this version, has done really good job at optimizing it for various GPUs, so you should definitely have no issues with the 3090. I'm running on a 2080 Ti. Some people have said that they've done really good with 2060s or even less. So be rest assured that whatever version of GPU you have, there's going to be there already are some really good optimization techniques involved, especially with engaging or disengaging the real time generation. You can kind of decide how much power you want to put into it, and we can show some of that stuff later. But since some of you are new and some of you aren't, this may be a refresher. But I'm just going to run through some of the general aspects of the program, where things are, especially since we don't have the official tutorials out right now. We can kind of get an idea of what to do. So in regards to how this is related to World Creator 2, it's similar in sense that everything you do with the program, all the settings and everything are in, this right panel over here. And there are some quick links. There is the typical, new project, load project, save project, see screenshots. But here's the new toolbar panel here on the right, which is really handy because, say, if I wanted to turn off the sun, I can turn off the sun and it's just a sort of a directional light that influences this. Or if I want to turn and see what the topography is going to look like, I can press the topo button. So some different things here, clamping the atmosphere. So these are some like quick links in order to see some varying things, including one that's pretty handy, which is the GPU info here in the bottom right, so that you get a sense of sort of the FPS and RAM usage and how fast the generator is happening. So that could be handy at times. If you are having an issue as far as optimization, there is a new feature that is the quick render or fast render. It's this little lightning bolt icon. And sometimes it could look a little different, a little odd depending on how your lighting setup is, but it's really meant for if you're not worried about lighting and you're worried more about designing the terrain within the program, because with the fast render turned off, we can do some incredible things with the sun. So I'm jumping ahead, but the little sun icon is your environment section to control all the lighting, the clouds, the water, etc. But we can do some real-time amazing things with the light at different angles. We can control clouds. Oop, I pressed it too many times. We can control clouds. We can control the water. So if I go down here and water is enabled, but we will increase that some. So this canyon here is now full of water. And the new rendering engine is really amazing with the amount of work that they've done. But you can see here, if I just leave that water on, the little FPS indicator up here says I'm hovering around 28 to 30 because there's a lot going on here. But if I click on the fast render, it does, change some things with the shader, but you see my FPS instantly went up to almost 100 frames. So it is much faster. Again, this is meant for if you're just trying to design the terrain and not so much for rendering the terrain within World Creator. I assume that assumption is correct, Stefan, that was the intention.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, this was just a very quick and dirty implementation. So once the fast render is finished, you will see the proper colors and all this stuff. So yeah, but it will be much faster than the current one. I mean, even though the renderer that we have implemented is not optimized yet fully, so this is also something that's getting faster until the full release. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming, like the objects loading and all this, so this has to be included as well. So yeah, it's not fully finished. So optimization comes last.
And of course, just like in World Creator 2, we can choose sort of the precision level, the amount of detail that kind of happens on the terrain. I've seen some things in chat about, that already. So, precision here, just to start off, 1 meter per of precision represents on this terrain, I think it was 1024 by 1024 meters of a physical terrain size. And we'll address the different terrain sizes later on in a new version whenever we are going to break ground on a tiling system. So that's one reason why you only see one tile right now at 1024. So rest assured, terrain sizing is going to be addressed later on, but now you can really do some amazing stuff now, even with changing the precision down to a quarter meter, which is a 4K resolution terrain thus far. And of course, the precision will take, help out with your optimization for FPS, or it could hinder it depending on what your system is. But just like in World Creator 2, we have some different stages to account for. Granted, in this version, there is a whole lot more to break down, a whole lot. I guess what I'm trying to say is the simplicity of it is pretty straightforward. So this first panel here, so this first tab is our surface or terrain tab. It's the tab that has all of the design that we're going to be doing within your viewport here. The next tab is, again, the environment tab, which we can, change anything from lighting, camera. There's a plethora of settings for clouds, seeing the water line that we just saw, changing the atmosphere, the terrain, and usually almost always, if you see on this example terrain here of these canyons, I usually like to take the soil height here and reduce it down to 0 so that you can see sort of the range at which your terrain is kind of being generated as. And one quick thing I wanted to make sure is to pop in my key history. So if you're not sure what I'm doing, if you look here in the bottom left, it's a little memory key to kind of see what I'm pressing. And I'll be posting a sort of key binding guide next week, actually, if you wanted to keep an eye out for that on Discord so that you can have a cheat sheet of all the key bindings in the software. And lastly is displacement, which we won't cover, but in the nutshell, if you've got a height map or even a texture that has a heat map applied to it, you can use displacement to tessellate the terrain any way you want. And then here's the export tab, which we'll cover later on, and the settings tab. So here's everything that you can do thus far within the program of changing the user interface colors, like I've already done. For my personal taste, you can turn off and on the real-time generator, which we'll probably show in just a little bit. But back to the surface and terrain tab. So some of the new things, and this is good for all the existing alpha users. One of the new things that that comes with World Creator is sort of this idea of having some presets, and noises to go with those presets, which presets are still in the works, but at its base level here, we have something new, brand new, for the beta called a base shape. So this base shape category here represents basically most of the noise that you see within this canyon terrain here. Everything was kind of driven by this base shape noise. So for example, there you can choose between different styles, and these are sort of like starting grounds. So the starting ground that everyone is probably used to, if I were to go right here and click this generate materials button to hide our materials and hide our filters so there's no influence, we can then go to style, click classic. And so here's sort of the classic beginner terrain that everyone is used to in this instance. So you have different options of which styles you want. You have canyon, cracks, crater, islands, mountain range, simple crack, and volcano. So if I were to choose a different one like mountain, for example, it changes up the noise for it a little bit. And you can say that I want to change up that noise start level. So it changes a little bit of sort of the detail level. If you want to add a lot of detail yourself, you start with a low start level. If you want to go with some of the details of the generation that is provided for you, you go with a little bit higher start level. And that's just a way to kind of get you going. And you can change up the seed of the noise itself a little bit. I'm going to change this back to 0. Let's see, how's our chat doing? Yes, full version will be released in February. 4-kilometer terrains. Yeah, there was an option for the precision to be up to an 8 meter before for 8K, but we're working on a few things for that later on, which we'll cover. I'm going to go back to Canyon here and then go back up to around this area and re-engage the filters and materials. So it looks a little different because I've tweaked some stuff, but the base shape, you can change this noise however you want. You can change the noise height. You can change the noise scale. So we can scale it up or we can scale it down, which makes the noise a bit large. You can change the height of this noise. So the generated noise you can see is being changed a little bit based on the generator that's providing it. I actually kind of like that a little bit there. All right, and then so it goes even further with the general fractal noise settings, which is the base noise setting. So this is sort of the additional grounds that everyone else is used to, but if you're not used to this base noise section provides all of the extra granular details for noising up the landscape, so to speak. So you can increase the strength of this noise, decrease the strength of this noise, change the seed value a little bit. But some of this noise is wildly based on the general shape that you're kind of providing. The level strength sliders, which you're used to in World Creator 2, are still here, but in much more of a dynamic graph setup. And I've covered this on many live streams before on understanding how this works, which you can more than welcome to check out. And the subbiomes percentage. So the subbiome percentage is all based on how many different biomes you have. And I haven't talked about this yet, but let's jump. So biomes here is, think of biomes as, more than just what our global biomes are here on Earth. Think of biomes as, areas, like they're similar to areas in World Creator 2, but they're so much more than that. They're masking areas. There's different levels of detail. So if I were to add a second biome, for example, and let's say this biome, we don't want it to overwrite the existing biome, we'll just click add. So it adds information additional to. So we have the second biome and we have the global biome. So the second biome is a child actor of the global biome. And we're going to cover this much detail later on, but not in this live stream because I want to get to some of the juicy stuff. But in essence, we can have multiple biomes and multiple biomes here. I'll just go ahead and add another one for clarity's sake. Add here. So we can have multiple biomes with, and you guessed it, different base shapes. So right now, these two biomes are based on the classic shape, which is the generator's natural procedurally generated detail that you're used to, similar to, World Creator 2. And the global biome here is the canyon one. Well, let's just say I want this second biome here to be a big crater. You can see that crater kind of is implanted right here, wherever this biome is. And to see where the biomes are located, we're going to click this little show biome icon here in the toolbar. And we can see that here's our pink area and here's our green area, which those are represented by the pink and green biomes here. And with the global biome, we can say we want the subbiome percentage to be a little bit less for each of these. And most of the influence will come back to the global biome. You see the yellow here represents the global biome, and the pink here is that biome, and that sliver of green represents that biome. So you can seemingly have different biomes with different sort of details. That one's a mountain range, so this is a funky little setup here. So in addition to, before we go to the next stage, in addition to having each biome with their own base shape, you can have each biome be their own level of detail with the base noise here. So if I were to, for example, with this green, take all of these and reduce it down, the level steps down to 25%, the area where this green is, as you can see here, that detail is really smooth. It's pretty harsh cut here, but that detail is really smooth compared to this detail because you have control over each biome, if that makes sense to everyone. I hope it does, because we can definitely go all day on this. I'm sure Stefan would love to spend all day on this, but we'll have to move on to some other fantastic things. So what I'm going to do here is open up and go back to our original. Let's try the mountain one this time. There is a few samples that come with World Creator. The canyon one that we started out with was one of them. And this mountain range region here is another one. Again, these are based off of the base shape of mountain range. But in most cases, if you're going to do a custom terrain on your own, like from scratch and sculpt, it doesn't matter which one of these or you'll choose, because you can edit your own landscapes. For example, here within each biome, you're able to control, we'll skip this one for now, you're able to control the custom base shape, the filters that are applied to it, the textures that are applied to it, and whenever objects come are objects. So for custom base shape, we can sculpt the terrain however we want. So we can create this, and we will increase the subdivisions some, and let's say we're going to flatten this. So we want to custom sculpt our own landscape. So I'm just going to paint a little bit here, widen the feather, and move this up. So all of this is about however you want it to be. You can custom sculpt anything to or in addition to what you've already created, or remove anything that you've already done. And you can see that I've left the filters and the textures on in this case. So everything happens in real time. If I were to really reduce this and get out of the custom base shape, all those textures and even the flow simulation and stuff kind of comes in real time, which is pretty amazing, especially if you're wanting to create something, realistic or quick on your own. You can just paint it in however you want. And to add to this, because there's obviously been lots of questions for this in the past about sculpting the terrain and stamping the terrain. You can already stamp the terrain now with alpha stamps. We won't cover that, but I do have a specific live stream where we covered alpha stamps, and we'll be obviously covering alpha stamps more later on. But you can import height maps. You can, again, import stamps, design stamps. If you want, you can take this makeshift terrain that we just created. You can export it from the export tab, or you can save this World Creator file somewhere else, open up a new World Creator file, and you can use what we created here within another World Creator file, either with the filters and textures applied, or if you just want to use the height map of this as a stamp in another project, you certainly can do that. So I'm just going to keep adding some of this here. And, this obviously looks pretty good, but we can take this a step forward, because I did mention that we can take real world data from this. So with our custom base shape icon selected, I'm just going to go ahead and flatten this. And then let's go ahead and go now to this first icon. So this first icon is the Map Tiler icon. And Map Tiler is a service that provides satellite imagery, DEM data, weather pattern data. There's so many different sorts of data that they provide throughout the globe. And the main source of data that we access here is the height map of different areas across the planet and colors. So you'll be able to color the terrain as well using whatever colors were on, that the satellite gathers. so to speak. So if we were to say let's go to somewhere here in Greenland. Let's just pick this beauty beast here. So to activate it, you can see we need to go to the custom base shape tab. And there is a section here that says use map tiler. So we're going to use that. And so this shape that popped in is based off where we zoomed in within map tiler. I'm going to press F to refocus the landscape into the orientation that we're seeing here in the map. If I zoom out, so that the filters and textures that you're seeing aren't part of what should be here. If we wanted to see what they really should be, we can go to satellite image here. And here's the image of what should be here. But in this example, I've got the textures and filters of that mountain range base shape generator that we had earlier is what is generating this image. But if I were to take this image and move it somewhere else, maybe this peak, you can see that the terrain has instantly jumped to the exact height and specifications of whatever I've zoomed in on. Of course, later on, because there's a question of scale, of course, I can zoom in and out, and the scale is whatever I've zoomed in and out of. In a later update, we're going to have the ability to specify that I want to capture a certain size region so that you can scale it properly, and we'll be able to see the, I'm assuming we're going to be able to see the height data as well, but if not, we'll have guides on figuring that out as well. And you can adjust the height scale here in World Creator dynamically. So it's pretty darn smooth. And you can also grab this specific texture if you want within the materials panel. If I add a new material, cover it up down here under settings, use satellite image, give it a second. And now what you see here should be the exact representation satellite wise of what you see here, shadows and all. If there is a shadow, unfortunately, in this image, it will be part of the color. And I'll actually show you some methods on how to remove that. So it should be pretty easy peasy, especially with, going far out like this. This is really cool. So to answer the question, there is a free version. I believe that's how Map Tiler is still doing it, Stefan, is there's a free version and a paid version to get the content, or is there some new pipeline with utilizing Map Tiler for the system?
Well, there is a free trial, which also shows the Map Tiler logo on the maps. So actually, you can sign up for free. You don't pay anything, and you get the height data, you get the satellite data, but you have to live with the Map Tiler watermark put on the map. Of course, it's a very expensive service in meanings of it's really a huge thing. It's a big thing. So if you want to use those data, it crashed. Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
If you're going to use the data for your own, for your artwork or for your work or for whatever, then you need, of course, a paid version. However, I'm already talking to Map Tiler, and we're figuring out a really good pricing model for people for the gaming industry. It also will depend on to what tier you actually belong to. Like if you're an individual, if you're an hobbyist, if you're a small company, if you're a large company, there will be different pricing tiers. So this is not final yet. So but it's really affordable. It's really good. It's a really good pricing model, and you'll see later. It's similar to our pricing model, and yeah, you will love it for sure.
Of course. All right. So yes, it crashed. So there's obviously I was pushing it a little weird with moving Map Tiler around a whole lot, but that's okay because we can jump straight into the next sort of direction that I wanted to cover real quick. Is we covered the Map Tiler section, the custom base shape section. So now we can, since we've got a plain project here, we can go to the filter tab. So again, if I add a few biomes here to kind of exemplify what I'm talking about, each biome, you can control every single nuance individually if you want. Again, I mentioned we're going to have some presets later on. So each biome, you can have its own map tiler section. You can each have a different biome for its own custom base shaping. If you want to have different levels of sculpting, you can use different biomes for sculpting at various details, a higher detail or a lower detail, for example. Each biome can do filters. Each biome has its own textures, so on and so forth. So it's a layer-based system that allows you to stack it up like Photoshop, basically, on what you want to apply to the terrain. Of course, there is some learning curve to understand the different nuances to the program, which is why, that's where presets are going to come into. And you can create your own presets, but they're not implemented fully just yet. But you should be able to create something remarkable in a pretty record time. And on another live stream, we'll do just that. We'll spend 10 minutes and seeing what we can create in 10 minutes. So stay tuned for that. But jumping into it, I'm going to click the filter icon, and you can add a new filter, obviously, by add filter. And it pops out into a list of the different filter categories. So general, design, effect, canyon, hills, plateaus, ridges, terrace, drift, erosion, sediment, and experimental. And be careful with the experimental category, especially with certain systems, because the reason why it's in the experimental category is obviously it's still in the works. So be sure to, if you're really working on something, be sure to save your project vigorously, just in case you're on a system that will crash, because some of these take more effort to produce than others. Some are really quick, like the ridged one here. You see it pop into the view, or the cratered cliff one pops into view. And I'm not engaging these. I'm just hovering over each one of these text, and it activates what it's going to do on the terrain pretty instantly. So everything is real time, or everything is mostly real time. Like I said, some of these experimental things or some sediment things or erosion things could take a little bit to generate just because it's using a lot of power. Like you can see if I go back over grid simulation, there's a menu or a little progress bar that appears here. And so once I hover over that, it did it fairly quick. Let's see if we can have it. All right, so me hovering over sand simulation is going to take a second because it's a pretty intense simulation, but it is really cool. You can see the base setting for that, which is pretty remarkable, but we're going to cover a lot of that later on. And erosion flow, one of my favorites. So the point here is that a lot can happen with these filters, and more filters are definitely coming. So let's go ahead and let's just choose something real quick. Let's do the volcano here. And let's do crater. So for crater here, we can increase the overall height of this crater. We can increase distortion. So this is some of the noise settings that I was talking about. But if you like all the base settings for this particular landscape, and I'm going to turn down the lighting just a little bit so that we can see a little bit of what we're doing. All right, so back to the filter. If I go back to the filter stack, let's just add the canyon filter here. Instantly added canyons, and let's add grid simulation. So we've got two filters now. We can rearrange these however we want, and the arrangement can definitely matter, especially if you've got some hierarchy over the other. So the top filter is going to be applied last, just like you would expect. What's on top, it gets applied on top. We can apply sediment complex, so add some sedimentation to that, increase the length of it a little bit. Maybe we want the canyon to be first and the sedimentation to be last. We can take another erosion, fluvial, which we're used to, but I'm actually going to go down to experimental, go to erosion flow. And lastly, we can add another one, which is a fun one, which is strange erosion. This one is pretty powerful. If I go to its settings, we can change some of its settings for sample size. And if I were to, let's say, hide these real quick. So strange erosion is pretty remarkable. We can adjust the details. If we want each individual filter to have less details in a certain area, we can adjust those with the level strength graph here. And you can see it acting pretty dynamically right on screen. I'll just click these to go back to their normal defaults. Additionally, if we want each individual filter to only be applied to a certain area, so maybe the canyon, I want it just to be in this particular section, we can enable area, and we can say we want it to just be applied to this area. And voila, it's applied to this area. Additionally, each filter, just like each texture that we can apply. So let's jump to textures real quick to see an idea. So I'm going to add a material. Let's change this to something a little bit darker. And now let's add a distribution rule, which rules are what basically drive where filters or textures are going to be applied on the terrain. So I'm going to add a distribution rule. And let's see, which one would you like, Stefan? How about the new one, the flow one here?
Absolutely.
I just executively decided that just because I wanted to show it. But so you can add multiple rules. Let's hide this one for now. We can add multiple distributions. So we can do a height distribution. Pop this up here. Let's say we want the texture of this particular dark area to be just in this area. We can then say, all right, within this area, I also want to have a slope influence. So let's say we want it to only slope within a certain range, but again, this slope is only being driven by where it's at based on this height data. So this height data here is then multiplying with the slope data to guide where it wants to be. So we can say we want to do this. I don't want it pretty steep. Maybe we feather the bottom out a little bit, or we should feather out the bottom of this height a little bit so it feathers out. Maybe the end of this feather is not smooth. Maybe it's sharp. We can change this boundary by adding a little FX plus icon here. So these are sort of additional effects that can be applied on top of filters and textures on how they're distributed. Say I want this edge to bleed out, but in more of a natural way. So we can say, how about small flow? And we want that to be, that strength to be popped out a little bit. And direction, we can pull it up or push it down. How about we pull it up a little bit? And say, maybe this is too smooth, but I still like the small flow. We can add another one. So maybe we can distort that edge a little bit. And maybe that edge doesn't need to be distorted that much. Maybe it's just a touch. And we can also do a really good one or cool one, which is noise offset. So we can add a noise strength to this edge. So cranking this up, you can see it applies, it takes everything that we've done and applies noise on top of that. But maybe that's just a little bit too much, so we can back that off. So let's go ahead and remove these effects. So we can double left click them to turn them off and still keep them there. We can double right click them to duplicate them. Same thing with if I double right click on this height, we can copy basically the whole string. Or like I'm doing here, I can drag and move these different textures off. So if I don't want this texture anymore, I can drag it out and we're left with the base texture there. So let's go back to this one and showcase flow. So flow is very new to World Creator Beta, and it is pretty remarkable. It allows you to do a lot of the natural water sort of effects, and the iterations here is a really important factor. So if I crank it up a little bit, you can see that it is adding more liquid. We can change the rain strength, how much it rains, how much it evaporates. So if it rains a lot, but it evaporates at a certain rate, you can change that. You can change the delta, which we could talk about that later on, what the delta is doing. And dampening is pretty cool. So you can reduce the dampening, and it's just like it's pockets of erosion, but it's not really moving. It's sort of, seeping in more. So if I want it to really run and show, we'll crank that up. If we want the transitions to be hard, we'll just remove all of the softness and the transitions will be a little bit harder. Or soft, it really softens it up and bleeds it out. And maybe this color is a little bit too much. We can double right click this, remove flow. And for this one, we will pick cavity. Let's say the step size is huge for cavity and the strength is low. We'll add a height distribution here, make it go to the bottom area here a little bit more. There we go. And I'll just feather that out some. So there's a lot of things that we can do to pretty much texture this terrain any number of ways that we want to do. But there's another way of texturing that I want to show you before we try and push some Q&A here, is the gradient texture. So with textures, you can do the shading, which is just a straight color. You can pick whatever color you want. Or if you have the color picker icon here, you see where my cursor is. That little color picker icon is changing. So I'm going to hover over this blue area, press spacebar, and it changes to an average. There's a radius around my cursor that changes that color to wherever my cursor is. Say I want it to be this. I messed up. Say I want it to be sort of this white color here. And I will press the spacebar and go back to that white color. So that's one way that we can do that, is changing the color here. We can change the roughness, but another one is obviously texturing. So textures, we can import our own custom textures. So you can import albedo, normal, roughness, ambient occlusion, and displacement. So your own textures will, let's say we want to, if I bring up my textures here, I will find them. So one thing that does come with World Creator is RD textures. So RD textures are a photo scanned texture library. They provide a lot of really good textures, so to speak, for scanned environments, trees. Well, not do they have trees, tree bark, or ground clutter? I think they have some ground clutter. But regardless, we're going to have all of these textures here come shipped with World Creator, and you can use these textures. And so if I were to take the albedo, which in this case is color, and I can drag and drop it, but I've clicked it to open, it'll open it. In normal, let's pick normal. It loads some of those automatically, so you can see that texture has applied automatically. And within this texturing, we can adjust the normal strength to be whatever we want, obviously, and UV scaling, we can scale up or down. And additionally, just like we showcased before, this texture can be distributed wherever we want. Let's pull a new texture down. We can say that this cavity, we want it to be convex, for example. So there's a lot of control on where we can put the textures, basically. So another form of texturing is substance materials. So substance is built right in. So let's say we want to add a substance material, and lo and behold, RD Textures has an amazing set of substance files already that come with all the materials that we kind of showcased here. So let's choose this SBR file here, this forest floor, open, and you can see this forest floor texture has been applied with all of these substance material properties you can see here in this panel. So everything that was part of that substance file, we can change every nuance to it that was created in Substance Designer. It is quite remarkable what we can do. And I'm still scrolling through these settings which is pretty remarkable. And still, even though we can change all of those substance settings, we still have the controls within World Creator to influence anything. We can influence the displacement to be on and off. We can change that displacement. We can influence the tinting. So say we don't want to remap the color within the substance file. Say we want to tint this to be a little darker. So we can just darken it up a little bit. Maybe we want to hue it red. Well, that got really red. It's a dark texture to do that. So it's pretty remarkable that we can add even substance files to this. So I'm excited to see what everyone makes of that coming, looking forward. All right, so we're going to click none here. And lastly, the third type of texturing is gradient. Now, gradient is really cool. So we're going to do, let's see, let's import. Now, if I can remember exactly where I put that gradient. So here's one gradient that comes with it. And we can click each of these gradients to kind of figure out what it's going to be. So this top one, we can say its distribution type is snow. So we'll pick snow for that one. This one is trees. Some of these are already pre-done for you. So I'll go through and do these really quick. And I believe that one was dirt. So gradients come with some predefined setups. And Stefan, how many gradients do you think we can look forward to that come pre-shipped with World Creator?
Well, we are already building them. It will be a really huge set that you can use and you can start with. And especially the distribution type that you see there called, currently showing the snow one. There will be also more presets available for the gradient. So it's a lot coming. I mean, this is a new system, and we have to do all the presets for it, and preparing everything. This will take a lot of time, but well, yeah.
Of course. So you can see I just changed this to mountain real quick. Let's change this to 0.5 meters so we can get some better resolution. And, these gradients are pretty remarkable. They're already preset up with a different sort of distribution stack to quickly give you some different effects. If we want to increase something in a certain range, that's what we can do. We can change, you can see the rocks right here, changing dynamically with the angle that I have here, blend smoothness. So there's a lot of areas that we can control. If I want to add some more trees in here, we can do that. But you can also create your own. So let's remove this and let's pick this. So let's gradient custom. So if I click this, we can then, like I did before, I picked import, but you can also do a color picker. Let's see, let's open up real quick. Let's open up now that I can't find it. Haha. All right, let's open up this texture, for example. This is the rock texture that, or the forest ground texture that we used earlier. So say we want to pick the color, and lo and behold, I always would do that. All right, so I'm going to put this picture off screen to the left. So here, I'm going to pick a color. So it tells you to hold Control to record colors with your mouse and press R to reset. Click anywhere to finish. So I'm going to hold Control. And while I'm going to hold Control over that rock texture, you can see right here, all those colors went in. Let's do that again. Let's press R to reset. Alrighty. Maybe I can do it this time. So I'm going to hold Control. I guess I have to be within the application to do that. So I've got World Creator selected, and off screen, I'm going to hold Control and move the mouse and then click anywhere to finish. And let's just say this is rock. And you can see instantly the rock color that I've created. We can adjust how much blending. So the blend range for this particular color is letting you choose Do you want from 0 to 1 of this color gradient, or do you want to focus specifically on a certain range within that image? So that's pretty remarkable. So do keep in mind that you can have whatever gradient you want, and I can pick here. So say I want all of this interesting blue here. So for this one, we can call this one, let's just call it snow, for example. And for that gradient, let's reduce it down so you can see that texture has been applied to the top here. And maybe we want to focus that color more on the high end, or add some of that white back. So it's pretty remarkable. So it's only using these 2 gradients for now. These 3 don't have anything applied to them yet. So it's totally up to you how you want to go about it. So I think that was all the main new things that I wanted to showcase today, unless you think, Stefan, I've missed something that was brand new.
Yeah, you covered everything. That's great. That's great.
So before we divert to the next topic, again, this was kind of real quick and in short summary to get you an idea of where things are. Real quick. So export, we can say we want to add an export preset. Let's say we want to export a height map and a color map. So we can export this height map or export these colors in various ways. And I think I've disincluded something there. So again, we can export this height map. We can choose to export a certain range or certain zone of this height map. We can export based on a variety of file types, bit depths, which is really nice. We can flip the Ys, which is handy for certain textures. If you're wanting to use the textures, I believe. You can also export a mesh. If you want to export this mesh out, you can do that, and you can include it for it to be quads, triangles, and more. And as well, you can export just the height map, color map, or mesh specifically, or you can export them all together. So there's a variety of things that we can do there. And I think that covers it with this. So why is the height map red? Well, the height map was red because it was on the default red color channel there. You can, I believe later on, Stefan, we can choose if the different textures will be applied to splat maps and have certain textures be on the red channel, certain ones on the green or blue channel. So the default for that one was just the red channel, but it'll still read correctly everywhere it should go. Like I've used this in Unreal Engine 5 and just imported it with the red channel, and it works no different than if it were black and white. Of course, I'm sure that we could probably have a not trying to put an extra work on stuff on an option to export just the black and white version if you want.
Of course.
So all right, so let's talk about the new website and from there, which I will let Stefan take over with that. So here is sort of a preview to the new website. So I am at your liege if you want to take it from here.
Yeah, the new website is but if you want, you can already take a look at it. If you go to the site.worldcreator.com, you can take a look how it will look like. I mean, above that video is going to be changed by a short version of our upcoming short film, which is already finished. We just have to wait until the website is done, and it will be like an official announcement of the first official version, which is coming in February, 20th February. So expect the short film somewhere in mid-January 2022. Yeah, I mean, you're going through the gallery now, so we can see the gallery. So actually, it's also planned that the trusted people, the trusted artists that do a lot of work for us, that they are allowed to upload automatically to our website stuff, and that stuff will be named, depending on the artist doing the work for it, together with the link, together with the Instagram link and all this stuff. And well, I think the most important part and what you're looking for is the pricing of Work Creator, because this is something that is going to be changed. But yeah, I heard a lot of things like people are very afraid of that Work Creator is going to be a subscription model or subscription based. And so no worries, I'm clarifying this now. It's not going to be subscription only. So yes, we do have a subscription plan, but we also will keep the perpetual plan. So you can choose whatever fits best to you. If it's either a subscription plan, monthly or yearly, or if you want to go perpetual directly, then you can choose also perpetual. So there's a delay, as I can see, Tyler, on the website, or from what I see on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
maybe you can scroll down a little bit until we see the pricing.
I haven't actually scrolled down. I was waiting for you to get to that point.
That's the delay. It's a huge delay.
Yeah, it's super big.
There it is. Okay, so let me see if you scroll down. Okay, now we can see the pricing. Okay, so here you can see that. So you can either go monthly, yearly, or perpetual. If you go to the website, it's online. It's not the official site because that's finished, but you can take a look at it. And if you want to check how it's evolving, you can just check online. So these are the pricings here. As you can see, the perpetual price has gone up a little bit from $289 to $349. Well, we had to make it a little bit more expensive in that meanings, because if you think about that, we have the material sets. It's about 48 materials that are free, included in the package. You also have to think that, alone, if you're going to pay for those 48 materials, you would have to pay, I don't know, it's about $300 or something like that. So we have to increase the pricing for this. However, if you purchase Work Creator in your customer area, the new one, you'll be able to download, it's above further 100 materials on top that you can download as a DLC. Of course, those won't be free, but it's a really good and fair pricing. So this is just if you want to go deeper and you need some really amazing textures, then this is the good chance to go for it. However, so the perpetual plan automatically includes the 48 materials from beginning. If you go for the monthly plan, you're gonna, we are feeding 4 new materials each month until you have the 1 year. So if you keep the monthly plan for 12 months, you get the full material list. As said here, 48 materials in total. If you want to jump this, like you want to have all the materials instantly, then you just go to the yearly plan, and you can see the price difference here. It's not really much. So actually, from my point of view, Work Creator got a little bit cheaper because the original price is $289, and we made it now more accessible to even to those who don't want to spend, or you just can't spend that much money but want to use Work Creator, or for those who have a project that lasts, let's say, for 3 or 4 months, and they don't want to spend the full price, but just renting it for 4 or 5 months. This was requested a lot of times, so in the end we decided to enable this this subscription model for those who want it, actually. But as you can see, to be honest, I was a little bit afraid of a shitstorm, something like that, because people thought that we are entirely going just subscription, but no, we're not. So please, please don't forget, it's still perpetual. So no worries about that. And now, especially for those who already own World Creator, the version 2. So if you upgrade or if you extend your maintenance before February 20th, you get the free upgrade to World Creator 3. Just keep that in mind. Yeah, the pricing that you see here for education, this is just a placeholder. It's not like they have to pay $5 or $8. They actually just get a discount of 30%. They would have to write us an email, and we're going to send them, after approving their ID cards for the student ID cards, we're going to send them 30%.
That's good.
Regarding this, however, the education version is a pure subscription model only. The reason is that, of course, students and pupils at some point, they're leaving university and schools. So it would simply not be fair to leaving them with a perpetual license for which they paid 30% less. So it's like, it makes sense to have a subscription based only for academic or educational reasons. Because this is something like, it ends at some point. And however, even those who want to further use World Creator after their studies, they can apply for a much, much larger discount afterwards. So they're not going to pay too much or even more than absolutely required.
That's good to hear. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's it for now from my point regarding the pricing thing. It's officially announced now, and you can see that on the website. So
cat's out of the bag.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yes, this is also maybe important for the perpetual license, because this is sometimes mostly misunderstood. Perpetual means that you perpetual does not mean that you purchase the software and you can upgrade forever. It just means that the license that you purchased belongs to you, and you can use the software. It won't turn off. But if you want to have newer versions after a year or 2 years, you would have to renew your maintenance. I mean, I think that's self-explanatory. That, yeah, of course. I mean, the development goes on, and development costs money, and so I mean, the perpetual includes a 12-month maintenance renewal, which means after your purchase, you can update to the latest versions that we release for 12 months. And once the 12 months are over, and you want to update again to something new, then you would have to renew your maintenance plan.
Gotcha. And how much to up? Because that question just came out. I can't remember if you said that or not. How much to upgrade your current World Creator 2 maintenance to get World Creator 3, which was a question, but if you're already on an active World Creator 2 maintenance, you should be able to get this version of World Creator now.
Exactly. So yeah, the plan is, and that's what I was telling on Discord as well, if you purchase World Creator after May 2020 or in May 2020, you don't have to renew your maintenance plan, because we're going to extend your maintenance by 12 months, starting with the official release of World Creator 3, that is the 20th February 2022. So after 20th February 2022, you have 12 months to receive updates. But if you purchased World Creator if you purchased and updated your maintenance plan before May 2020, then you would have to renew your maintenance again to get World Creator 3. That's really important to know, because it's simply said fair, because we announced World Creator 3 at that time. We didn't do any further updates on World Creator 2 at that time. So everything is reset on May for those who purchase afterwards. They don't have to rebuy, but those who purchased before, they would have to rebuy, because they did not extend the maintenance. That's the idea after this. Yes, the full version will have a full installer, of course. Pricing is US dollar. That's true. And yeah, there also won't be any difference like standard or professional versions. It will be just one version. It will be equal among all tiers. So individuals, professionals, hobbyists, large companies, small companies will run exactly the same version. It's just the license that differs and makes a difference in pricing.
Perfect. So I'm going to spend a couple minutes to let people ask any further questions about anything thus far, because I've scrolling through chat and I've obviously tried to go live with it, but I've missed a few, and I think Stefan here has answered some on the way. But is there anything that everyone, or any further questions that anybody would like to get asked while we're here? Because there's a lot that obviously we've put down a lot of info pretty quick today, but rest assured we will be doing more things in the coming days.
So yes, actually we can start with the Octane customers. So that's a good question. What's going to happen? It is like we're going to deliver World Creator 3 as an Octane version. So it will be called World Creator for Octane. That specific version will only allow exporting stuff for Octane standalone version, So there won't be anything like you can export the native image format. So it will be just oriented for Octane. Just to be fair, that because pricing is a little bit different, just to be fair with us and with Octane and Otai as well. So this is coming expected just right after the 20th February, once we release World Creator 3 for Windows. The Octane version is the next one we're gonna focus on. This won't take that long, so I think this might take 2 weeks or something like that before we start with the Mac version. And so World Creator for Octane will be exclusively available at the Otoy store, and World Creator Standalone will exclusively available on our own website.
Perfect.
The next question is like, is there any bridge plan to Houdini in the future? We do not have plans right now for having a bridge to Houdini. However, the first things that we're gonna do is for having bridges for Unity, for Unreal, for several game engines. For Octane, we have the World Creator for Octane version. We plan to have further bridges for other applications like Cinema 4D and all this stuff. So Houdini is not yet on the list, but it might change. We first have to, develop all the things that we have on the list before we start to look for others.
Gotcha.
Does the beta currently have the ability to export for use in Unreal? Yes, it has, but it's not a Unreal specific export. So you can export the height maps, the color maps, and the splat maps and whatever. But you would have to set up your own material in Unreal to get this running. However, if you already own World Creator 2, we do have a nice documentation about how to set up the materials and all this stuff in Unreal. You can download it through the customer portal. I think there's also a preset material for Unreal that you can use. So it doesn't make any difference because the data that you import is exactly the same.
Gotcha.
Is there a way to load a height map?
Oh yeah. Totally.
Yes.
You can totally import a height map as your starting point. You can specify if you want that height map to cover the whole terrain, or if you want that height map to act as a stamp to be on a certain part of the terrain. If you have multiple height maps you want to use as stamps, you can do that. I have an entire live stream that kind of did that, but since we've got the beta out now, we'll definitely be doing another one on that. Also, we'll once the videos, because I'll reiterate this again since there's a different number of people here, the official tutorials for beginning this software is going to be coming out on the week of January 3rd. following that video announcement, we'll be trying to do live streams every week, either here or over on Twitch, maybe both, haven't decided yet, but we're going to definitely be coming and showing you how to take World Creator and putting it in other applications like Unreal, for example, or Blender, or maybe even 3ds Max and Corona. We'll see, but we'll definitely be doing hopefully weekly live streams like this, but more design oriented. This was really a push of information for one day. Let's see.
There's a question about soil sediment is a feature that was turned off in this release. No, it's actually there.
I'm actually using it right here on this terrain.
Yeah, right.
I'm using
any news on vector displacement. Well, this is something that will come after the release. This is something that we will implement. It will be more important once everything is finished. Then we are focusing on the rendering stuff. You know, like improving things, setting up scenes, setting up multiple cameras, doing nice screenshots, doing high resolution screenshots, doing panorama shots, and all this. I mean, this is where the rendering and especially vector displacement comes into a more important place. So this is coming later. Regarding the path tool, this will be available in the final release, of course, together with the shape tool, but it will work a little bit different. We want to improve the workflow compared to World Creator 2. Was the new teaser for the short film? Yes. It's on YouTube.
It's the teaser is, and I don't know if we mentioned it at the start, but the full film is coming out in February. I want to say that
in February. Yeah. You have to wait for that because it's a marketing thing. We have to.
Yeah.
We'll release it 2 weeks before, and it will be a huge marketing stuff and promo stuff, and there will be also a lot of stuff around it. So just wait those 2 last months. Actually, we could have released it 3 or 4 weeks ago, but it does make sense. It has to be fit into the marketing things.
Oh yeah, of course. And
any list available of new features that are planned before release? No, we're not going to release any feature lists because we're pretty sure that the competition is watching us quite closely. So we're not opening up any new things, and there's a lot of stuff that is coming, but I'm not willing to talk about it yet because it's some really amazing new things.
Questions on Mac and Linux support, are those part of the questionnaire?
Yeah, of course. Well, Linux is like I'm still not really sure if we should go for Linux because it's a really minor operating system, and it's something that, I'm not sure if it's really, I want to be honest. I'm not sure if it's worth developing for Unix, for Linux, in meanings of development time, development money, and the turnaround that could be made on Linux. It's really a very minor operating system, to be honest. So we had, I think, 4 or 5 requests on Linux since 4 or 5 years ago. So it's like it's not really asked that much. So this is, I mean, it really depends. If the port could be done very quickly, then maybe yes. If not, then I really have to see if it's absolutely makes sense or not. However, the Mac is something completely different because the Mac is quite a huge platform, and we decided to release on the Mac 100%, and it will be exactly the same, the same version as for Windows. And on top of this, we're also planning to release World Creator for the iPad. So. You see that. I mean, even the iPad market is much larger than the Linux one. So it doesn't make sense to focus on Linux yet. I'm really sorry about this, but it simply does not make really huge of sense. Maybe.
Well,
however, I mean, we can do something like testing if you can run World Creator 3 inside Wine on Linux, because World Creator 2 runs on Wine inside Wine on Linux, so it doesn't really need a specific Linux version. Multi-GPU support, that's a really good thing. I mean, currently it's working on one GPU only. However, this is something that we plan to implement. But first, before we do this, we have to finish everything, and then we can do the multi-GPU support afterwards.
Well, of course. Let's see. To answer the question, are there ways to make certain areas in higher definition than others? And I was curious if, along with that question, you can already make different areas with higher or lower resolution of amounts of detail, but I don't know about, because when you export the terrain, it's all a single resolution. But I guess maybe what I'm actually curious about that made that question come to mind is adaptive details. So like if as far as when you export a mesh, can you export a mesh with where it's adaptive, so that if there's a certain flat area, or if instead of it all being an even amount of quads, if the triangles or something were able to be dense in certain areas but not as dense in certain areas, so that you can save up on vertice count when you're importing into other applications.
Yeah, I understand. So it's actually a question of a level of detail on certain areas. Whereas I mean, this depends on the terrain system you're using. If you're exporting, then we need to implement something like Rome technology, which is like a continuous level of detail technology, which means it just adapts, like flat areas just require a very short amount of vertices, whereas very high detailed crispy areas of course require a higher amount of vertices. So this is a terrain technology system that we have to implement, and then we can do the export things like that. I mean, this technology could also be used for the visualization of the terrain inside the application. Well, it's not something like we are going to do for the release version, but it's definitely something that we could do afterwards.
Okay. Perfect. Yes, this stream will be available right after I click end, or it should be. If it's not, I'll be sure that it is for sure. For areas you're showing, okay, I see. I read that wrong. Oh, and let's see. Oh, gotcha. I think we've answered quite a bit thus far. Except for, do I work for World Creator? No, I don't work. I work with World Creator. I don't work like directly for them, if that makes sense. Okay. Well, I believe that covers everything thus far. We've gone a little over than anticipated, but that's perfectly fine. I love Q&A sessions when we do these live streams. And one last question. I think the answer to that was yes. It was used in the movie Dune, wasn't it?
It actually was used in many more movies, but at some point I'm not allowed to say that. Oh, but you can't imagine what kind of companies do not allow you to tell about it. So
yeah, I've used it in many other high level projects too. I can't unfortunately say it either, but yeah, it's definitely a software that has been tried and true and used. I do want to point out that yes, it even once the product, or once World Creator comes out in February, like the more official release and the whole big marketing push, that doesn't mean that it's over. It's a continual software. The more feedback that we get, the better that these guys can, do their magic and create the world, so to speak. So, and with that, Absolutely. We're going to have a plethora of content to support any specific questions that we didn't answer here or any specific types of content that you want to see. If there is a topic or a specific area in the program, like if you really want to learn, which I'm still planning on covering, like proper workflows of understanding the biome system specifically, since we kind of did everything today in a brief manner. That's going to be a topic that we're really going to dive into in a live stream as well. So if there is a question or a specific area that you want to know, do post that in the World Creator Discord server, perhaps in the tutorials channel or just a general chat channels. But be sure that you tag me in there so that I can see it, or you can just direct message me, and I'll be sure to add that to a list of different things. The huge pipeline that I really want to show you guys also is the end goal. How to go about the right mindset of creating something in this application for use in another application for rendering or video games or cinematics, meshes. What's the proper way to use World Creator as a background mesh? I used it recently in the Quixel Megascans trees video. I used Map Tiler and exported meshes for that landscape, and just a wide variety of things that we'll definitely cover. So again, you'll be able to see this stream hopefully right after we end it here, and we will definitely have more to come. So with that, I thank you, Stefan, for joining me today. This has been a very fun stream, hosting the new beta version of World Creator. And I definitely hope that you guys enjoy the software. Do let us know any bugs, any features, anything that you want in the Discord server, and we shall take a look at it. So with that, thank you all so much for joining this stream. It has been a pleasure, and we shall see you